Hello and welcome and good afternoon, everyone, to our final webinar of day one of National Graduate Week. Hope everyone is doing well this evening, or this afternoon rather. I am your host, Andy from Career.tv, and today we have JLR, who will be taking you through their offers as well as what it's like to work with Jaguar Land Rover. Remember, there will be a Q&A at the end of the session, so if you do have any questions throughout, just pop them in the chat box and we'll come back to them at the end of the webinar. And it's also recorded, so if you do miss anything or you feel like your question has been answered, don't worry. You can always go back and watch it on our YouTube and website. It's getting to the end of the day. I'm getting worn out. It'll come up on our YouTube and our channel on our website in the next coming days. So without further ado, I'll pass on to the JLR team to commence with their session.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining our webinar today. As we mentioned, a bit later in the afternoon on a Monday, so we do appreciate you being here. We're going to take you through a few things just to talk about JLR in terms of who we are, what we do. We'll talk about our programs as well, particularly focused on the graduate schemes that we have on offer. So I'll talk to you a little bit about those. You'll then be able to get some insights into us through some actual people that are on program. So you'll hear from them. Then I'll take you through our application process, so give you a bit of information, hopefully some tips and things that are going to help you excel in your applications, hopefully to us. And then we'll also have time for a Q&A at the end as well. So we'll definitely get around to answering your questions. I guess just to start, actually, before we do these polls, just to start, I should introduce myself. So I'm Sam Parkin. I lead on our university engagement at JLR, and I've very much been in your shoes a few years back. So I started JLR as an undergrad in 2016 and came back as a graduate in 2018 and did our graduate program here in HR. So I'm not super technical for any of the engineers out there, but I've been through the program myself, really enjoyed it, and it definitely helped me get to the career that I have now. So I'd always recommend graduate programs regardless of the company that it's at. But I've had a great experience myself at JLR, and hopefully I can share a little bit more of that and get some of our people on program to share their insights too. So I thought we'd start with a poll just to see how confident you actually feel about applying for graduate roles at this point. So I've just started the poll. Hopefully you'll be able to see that on screen in a second. So how confident do you feel about applying for graduate roles? Are you not at all confident? Maybe you've got a little bit of confidence, or maybe you're super confident. It'd just be good to see where people are at.
Okay, well, it's not in there. It's also if you just go click on the polls and then you can vote, and that's where it'll come up for you.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, got some people coming in now. So we got some early doors, somewhat confidence. That's pretty good. Just see if we have any more votes in the next few seconds. Okay, a few not confidence coming through as well. Well, hopefully by the end of today's webinar, we can switch that and we can get the not confidence at least into somewhat confident, maybe into super confident. We'll see. Okay. So to introduce you to us, you might see JLR and wonder what that means, who that is. Essentially, it's Jaguar Land Rover, which is probably more well known. So JLR itself is a house of brands. We create Range Rover, Defender, Discovery, and Jaguar, which are vehicles that you probably see on the street all of the time. And very much we're changing as an organisation. So we've always been an automotive company, but very much moving into the modern luxury world. And this is why there's been a logo change. Our branding has changed recently. It's all about our modernist design philosophy and the unique vehicles that we create, essentially. And underpinning all of this is our Reimagine strategy. So this is our global strategy that basically is our future of the company. There's a lot of key themes in here. There's things like electrification. So, for example, our Jaguar brand will be all electric by 2025. And there's a brand new vehicle line coming out as part of that, which is super, super exciting. We've already got PHEV versions of some of our vehicles, and by the end of the decade, we're also committed to Land Rover nameplates being in pure electric form. So again, that's super exciting. In fact, the first all-electric Land Rover will come next year. There's also big themes around sustainability, so that is really important to us. We've got aims, for example, around net zero carbon emissions by 2039. And also we're a company that's owned by Tata Group, which some of you may know. So very much exploring collaborations and synergies with other companies within the wider Tata Group, as well as industry leaders. We've developed partnerships with NVIDIA, for example, that's supporting our autonomous and technology forward thinking, connected services and stuff like that. So lots going on in terms of our strategy, and it makes it a really, really exciting time to join a company like us. So I'm just going to play a video now that actually introduces our new campaign, which covers recruitment for 2024.
I'm going to qualify. I'll be a qualified technician. I'll be qualified in what I always wanted to do.
I mean, there's so much further for me to grow, but I've seen a massive change in like the way I am, the things I've learned.
I've been inspired by some great people. There's some really inspirational people in JLR.
If you want to push yourself, there's nobody stopping you. They are there to facilitate that development.
The most inspiring characteristic about someone is when they are themselves. I have a world of possibilities here. That's the good thing about JLR, and that's what I'm excited about.
So hopefully you enjoyed that video. It was super exciting to be able to lead on that campaign and help create some of that messaging. So you'll have hopefully seen that at the end, the arrive as you are, achieve the exceptional. And very much that's our strapline for this year. And it's all about how we want you to be able to feel like your authentic self when you're applying to us and when you're joining the business. So we'll come on to a bit more about diversity and inclusion, but I feel like JLR has a very inclusive culture, and it's something that has grown in positivity and in the last few years in particular. And it's becoming a better and better place to work every day. And I'm seeing a lot more authenticity coming out, a lot more people sharing stories and being their true selves. And I think that that's really important. And we want new people to feel the exact same way. So that's the sort of premise behind the campaign. And hopefully you enjoyed that video. There'll be another to come in a minute. Before we do that, though, just to talk a bit about graduate programs. So how do you actually find them? I think there's quite a lot of different ways that you can go about it. In particular, using company websites. You might want to use your university career service first, perhaps speak to tutors, family and friends, things like that, to help point you in the right direction. You can start to think about, what do you do in your degree? And based on that, what type of industries might be relevant to you? Are there any particular roles that you might be wanting to pursue? And you can start to figure out what companies you therefore aspire to work for. Then you can use their company website. You can use stuff like, obviously, Career Map, Grad Cracker, etc., to help find some of those jobs that are available and also see some of the application process information. And your research is super important at this stage as well. So while we're in that kind of heavy period, I guess, of roles being open, making applications, doing your research to help ensure that your application is a good one. So looking into the company's values, looking at the company's mission or objectives, and understanding, how do you fit into that? And also, depending on the role, how does that role apply to you? What skills and experiences do you have that would help you stand out when you're applying for such a role? That's what's going to help you, and it's what's going to make your application stand out. We'll talk a little bit more about that process just slightly later on in the webinar today. So just to talk you through the graduate programs that we have on offer. So first of all, our grad program is 2 years. It's really exciting because you get to do rotational placements as part of the program. So depending on the area, that might be 4 6-month placements. might be 2 12-month placements, or it might be something completely different. But ultimately, I think what's so good about a graduate program is you don't just come in on a particular role that's given to you and say, right, this is your job now until you decide to change again. But you actually get to have more of a rotational experience. I don't know about you, but I knew when I joined, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I didn't know what role I wanted to go into. I just knew I enjoyed the area, which was HR for me, might be engineering or something else for you. So you get that really rounded experience, and hopefully as part of those rotational elements, you'll find a team that you really enjoy, and that's certainly then when you can go and progress your future career. You'll also have a structured learning program. So soft skills are really, really important, and it's how you work with people is by demonstrating those skills. So we have a training program that you'll do that will help you develop those. And also there's various different things you'll do in the program, whether it's kind of brand experience, whether it's our innovation challenge that you do in the second year of the grad program that helps you work on various different projects collaboratively with other graduates around the business. There's a lot of excitement to be had on the program and a lot of development too. Applications are open right now. You'll see the list of programs below. The ones in red have already closed for this year, just as an FYI. I know that the future propulsion systems within engineering is close to closing, and it will probably close at the end of the week, start of next week. So FYI for anyone interested in that one. But yeah, there's still a range of programs on offer. And in terms of starting salary, it starts at 31,000, which doesn't include the 2,000 joining bonus that you'll also get when you start the grad program. And it rises to 35,000 after the first year of the program. And then after the second year, when you complete the grad scheme, it is 38,000 as well. That doesn't include something called increased working week. So those numbers are for 37 hours of work a week. Most people work 40, which is a pretty standard working week. If you do that, you'll get an additional 8.1% as well. So you can add about $3,000 basically to those numbers in terms of the salary you'll be on if you opt into that. I'm not going to read through these, obviously, but just to show you some of the entry criteria for our program. So some of them are pretty open in the sense of taking any degree background. Some of them are a little bit more fine-tuned, for example, any STEM or engineering background, and some of them are pretty specific. So, for example, software engineering, you'll need a background in that space, computer science, software engineering, or cyber engineering, or something very similar. You'll be able to see these on the website, so you can click into a particular area, click into a pathway, and it will tell you what you'll need, and that will tell you the relevant degrees. There is an email address you can contact if you are unsure for any reason or have any other questions, which is graduate@jaguarlandrover.com. So feel free to get in touch with them as well. I'm going to play you another video now before we actually hear from some of our current people on program. This is from Joseph, who is on the grad program right now, and he talks a little bit about his experience and why he's enjoying his time at JLR.
I was very much one of them people that didn't really know particularly what they wanted to do. I just knew what I was pretty decent at. So with the graduate scheme, and it was in particular, it was the title of the role. So it was graduate propulsion engineer. Now obviously, we're moving into the world of EVs, and I want to be part of that future. Now I initially came in as like a research propulsion engineer, and that was very much focused on like the future of sustainable transport. It's very emerging technology in a lot of like the different fields, and as an engineer, I want to be part of the research group, and I want to innovate, and I think sustainability has got the biggest scope for innovation right now. I want to be part of JLR's driving force behind that. It's the future. It's preserving the planet for future generations to make sure that they can live, the same style of lifestyle that I have. I think I'm proud of like coming into work every day. I'm proud of being a part of this firm. I think what they do is unbelievable. I think like the size of the cohort and the responsibility that you get down here, and access to like absolutely world-class facilities, is something that you don't necessarily get in other firms. If you want to push yourself, there's nobody stopping you. Like, they are there to facilitate that development. I just love being part of like the fast-paced innovation. I absolutely love what I do. I come into work every day with a smile on my face because I know every day is going to be different. I'm not doing the same thing every day. And I think that's like, for me personally, exactly the type of role I want to be a part of. I don't know what the future entails, but if we had to find like some, innovative solution that's helping us achieve our net zero targets, being a part of something like that would be unbelievable.
Brilliant. So just a couple more things from me. So I thought it'd be good to talk about the benefits of a grad scheme at JLR. And this probably applies to most places, hopefully, but particularly with us, the fact that you get to engage, as I mentioned, in a learning program that's delivered by an industry recognised provider, I think is great. And it really helps you to start developing those core skills that are going to be super useful to you in your future career, but also developing those technical skills as well. So, you might join a team with a graduate that's already been in the business for a year. Perhaps there'll be someone else that's been in the business for a few years. Maybe there's a manager that's been there for 10, 20 years, etc. The fact that you're learning from industry leading experts that have perhaps been in your shoes or have certainly had a good experience of JLR for a number of years is really going to help your development. But also they want to learn from you as well. So you're not just coming in to observe and watch what they do. You'll definitely get stuck in and be able to deliver on crucial projects as well. You're coming in with a fresh degree, a fresh pair of eyes and insight. They don't necessarily have that degree, or they might have obtained it 10 years ago, and curriculums and everything changes. So it's really, really useful for us to be able to learn from you, as well as hopefully you'll learn a thing or two whilst you're here. But you'll definitely gain some really good experiences that will help you to apply your degree, and hopefully you'll make an impact. I've spoken to so many of our graduates on program and seen some of the great things that they're doing, and it's really exciting, and they've definitely had an impact. They've had the ability to lead teams at times and achieve so many things just in that 2 years alone. I think one of the other good selling points for me is the community feeling. So when you go from university into a professional job, I think it can be quite scary and daunting, and it's obviously a very different world. But there's a really good community at JLR of people on early careers programs, and they do all sorts of social activities. So they've done summer and Christmas parties. They do various different sporting and non-sporting activities. They've done massive ski trips, I think, for the last 2 years as well. So it just helps you adjust and settle. I know, for example, when you join the company, you'll get kind of put into a Discord group for all the people that have got an offer. And often the conversation on there is about sorting accommodation and people saying that they've got a couple of rooms spare in a flat or a house or whatever it might be, which I think is always nice. So it definitely helps you settle in and transition from that life at university into obviously life in the professional world. And just to touch on D&I before we hear from some of our people on programme, I think this is super important to us and JLR. So in particular, what I've seen in the last few years since I started, obviously as an undergrad in 2016, is these networks have come on leaps and bounds. There's more and more networks now. When I joined, half of these didn't exist. And again, when I joined, I think a lot of the networks were there for like-minded individuals to speak and connect with each other. But now they don't just act as kind of that, but they are driving the business forward and driving the culture forward at JLR. So many of those networks have got board level sponsorship. I know Adrian, our CEO, has been involved in various events that some of these networks have done, which I think is amazing. And not him, some of his board members have. So there's a real commitment by JLR to improving the culture here. And these networks are very much driving it forward. So regardless of if you've got a particular characteristic that might fit a network or if you just want to be an ally to them, this is definitely something that you can get involved in driving when you're with us at JLR. And I believe network committee members as well get 3 hours a week to support the initiatives from the relevant network they're a part of, which is great as well. I think there was recently a D&I summit in September, which was actually a collective diversity, equity and inclusion themed event, first that JLR's ever done, and it had amazing attendance as well. So a lot of positive things happening at the moment and a really, really positive shift in the culture. And for me personally experiencing this, I think it's a really great place to work. Hopefully you'll hear that from some of our people on programme too. Speaking of, I'm going to pass over to a couple of them now. So, Manoj, we'll start with you if you want to come on to camera.
Hi.
I guess, do you want to introduce yourself first of all and the pathway that you're on?
Oh yeah, so I'm Milash Pereira. I go by Minu at my workplace. So essentially, I joined JLR around 2 months back, 2.5 months. So I'm a new grad, and I joined under product engineering, hardware and mechatronics grad scheme, and I'm currently in the weights team. So I mainly deal with the mass properties of the vehicle. So I mostly work on figuring out what the mass properties are, what are the challenges we face, especially with going fully electric, because the all the batteries tend to add a lot of weight to the cars. But at the same time, it's a challenge to stay within the weight limits because each country has different weight limits. So EU and China tends to be a bit different from each other in the sense. So that's essentially my scope of work, and it also includes doing tests and going and weighing vehicles. So last Friday I was at Whitley. So I'm based in Gaydon, but I was at Whitley weighing our new Range Rover. So yeah, it's pretty exciting, and that's what I do in the business right now.
Brilliant. And Reka, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Reka. I'm a second year grad, so I joined JLR back in 2022. My what we call home team. So my first rotation was in software integration in the passenger entertainment team, which is a branch of infotainment. And I've done a few different placements. So I've done a placement in VR research, which was very exciting. And then I've also done a 5-month placement in cabin interiors, doing system engineering. And I will also be doing a placement based around customer experience in the next 3 months. So I'm going to have a real good rotation of different departments.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think those rotations are great. As I've mentioned before, it's really hopefully allowing you to have that kind of rounded experience and try out a few different things. And maybe if you're working on one part of a process and then you get to see a different part and a different placement, I think it hopefully is helping you embed and really learn the skills that you'll have started to learn in your degree.
Definitely. I think the really great thing about the grad scheme is you don't have to stay within your sort of route that you pick. So, for example, research is not really a path within electronics and complex systems. System engineering was in the body and chassis department. So I had the chance to try out different departments, which I thought was really good.
Amazing. So I'm going to ask you each one by one. Why did you choose to join JLR initially? So, well, Milad, I'll hand over to you first.
Yeah, so essentially JLR wouldn't be in the list of recruiters, like employers I would have gone to essentially because I did aerospace engineering. But I was just going through, funny enough, Career Map. I joined Career Map, one of the webinars, when I was in uni. And I saw JLR, and I just went ahead and researched on this. So I went to the company website, the grad scheme website. And the most interesting thing was not a lot of companies have all the skills, the full grad scheme in detail in their websites. So JLR in their website, they gave me not a very in-depth, but an essential summary of what I'll be doing in the 2 years, which was very interesting. And I was like, oh, I would have a purpose in this company. So that's why I first looked into it. Then I went into depth. And I felt like instead of just getting work out of us, in the sense like, yeah, we are working full time, they are giving something back to us as well, because in the grad scheme application, they have mentioned about Ashon Hill and all the training we will get and about the rotations we can do. So I was very interested. And even though it wasn't initially in one of my company lists to apply to, honestly, the grad scheme, just job advert, if you might call it, was the thing that interested me to apply. And yeah, from that point, I just got more and more interested in the company throughout the interview process. And what sealed the deal for me was, so we had an induction before we even actually got our results back, so that I didn't know if I was going to join or not if I get a good result. But they had the induction, and I came on site to Gaydon. And honestly, the work culture, the people who talked with us, that's what like sealed the deal for me. I was like, oh, this is a nice place. I would love working here. So yeah.
That's amazing. And yeah, I think you're referring to the post-offer engagements, kind of after you got your offer, you got to come onto site as well. Yeah, no, I think they're brilliant. Because obviously, we'll talk about it in a minute. But our application process is all online. But I think it's really important for you to actually be able to see the place that you're going to work at and experience it and understand if it feels right to you. So that's why we do those events. I'm glad you found that useful. So, Raker, I'll ask you the same question. Why did you choose to join JLR?
Yeah, easy question. Jaguar and Land Rover, two huge iconic brands. I've always been such a huge fan of Range Rovers and Defenders, and now I get to work on them in person. I get to drive them, which to me is just so amazing. And it's also very exciting to be a part of new product launches, and I get to work on the new features. We also have the National Automotive Innovation Centre at Warwick Uni, which I had the chance to be a part of when I was in the research team, which was also very exciting because there's a lot of great ideas coming out of there. And yeah, that's all.
Brilliant. I guess for both of you, how did you find the application process with us?
Essentially, so the initial application, we didn't have to submit a CV, if I remember right. It was like 1 year ago. So, yeah. So it didn't take long. It took like 30-ish minutes, but we had to answer questions and everything. That was pretty okay because I got time to sit back and properly answer and think about why I want to be in JLR. I think that's really important because it makes you think, do you really want to be there, because you had to put in the effort. The interview process was quite challenging because we were told to make a presentation beforehand about the reimagined strategy, which is pretty new, and that made us like research into the company. So that was a bit challenging. It was around 2 to 3 hour interview process, like virtual. So it was of 2 parts. So that was a bit challenging. So if you aren't really good in interviewing skills and stuff, you might find it really hard. But it was pretty challenging, but pretty nice. I got to know a lot about JLR, like while I was researching for my interviews. So that was pretty nice. And after the interview, after I got my offer, the inductions, everything was pretty great. It gave me a lot of insight on what JLR is, what their plans for the future. So yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah.
Cool. And
I thought it was pretty straightforward. I think it's like a standard application process. If you're applying to a lot of grad schemes, it's going to be very similar to that. The one thing I was really worried about was that I didn't really have any engineering experience. So I've just done my bachelor's and came straight onto the grad scheme. So if that's you, don't worry, your career's not doomed if you haven't done a placement year. Yeah, but it's really straightforward, really easy to do. Just be yourself.
Hopefully we'll be able to help people out in a minute as well, just to talk through that process. And I think it's useful that you've mentioned about the sort of lack of experience as such, because we definitely don't expect it. And I think that's definitely a common feeling amongst people that are just fresh out of universities, that they're going to need experience to join us. And it's definitely not the case. And what I always tell people is, in terms of that experience, it can come from anywhere. And I'll talk about this shortly, but in our sort of application process, it's all about the soft skills and your passion and motivation to work for JLR rather than anything super technical as such. So, you know, if you've got experiences in retail or hospitality, volunteering, maybe university work or extracurricular projects, societies, whatever it might be, all of that is relevant experience, and it's those soft skills that you've got from that, coupled with, as well, said, you know, that why you want to join JLR piece in that initial application is the stuff that's going to get you over the line with us. So you don't have to have been a software engineer for years to then come and be a software engineer here on the graduate program, which I think is good. and it helps, and hopefully that alleviates some nerves or maybe some imposter syndrome feeling among people. I'm going to ask you both kind of a double question here. How has your experience been so far within your role, and also how's your experience been in terms of the culture at JLR? Well, Minaj, I'll ask you first.
Yeah. So as in my current role, so I said I joined like just a few months ago. So the first 2 weeks, I was given time to settle in, get all the admin stuff done, get to know people, find my place within the team. And I was slowly but steadily introduced into all my work. So currently, I'm not busy to the extent that I am drowning in work, but I am given a certain set of responsibilities that I have to carry out. And I am given responsibilities like, oh, you can go do this alone. I'm not treated as a baby in the sense like, oh, you're new, we are not going to give you big responsibilities. I am given responsibilities to the extent that I won't be overworked, but I am able to carry out, and I'm able to be my own individual and show my skills, which I think is really important because you can't always be in the shadows. And when it comes to culture, I think this depends on the team you are in, even the first base, the experience you worked, how your work experience is, and even the culture depends on what team you are in, and every grad you ask, they find it different. But my team is really great. I love my manager. So I have like constant one-to-ones with him. Everyone is pretty nice. Everyone helps me out. They don't say, oh, you're annoying because you ask so much questions. No, everyone's so nice to you. They treat you as an individual with your own thoughts and your own responsibilities, your own skills. No one has looked down at me. So I think a lot of questions I have got from earlier webinars as well, like how do you feel like a woman in engineering? I have honestly not felt any difference, although there's only like maybe two girls in the team. Like everyone treats you the same, and I really love it here. Like I said, the first thing that really made me feel very content with my choice was when I saw the culture and the people when I first came to the induction, and I stand by it, saying like it is the best. So yeah.
Brilliant. Glad to hear it, definitely. Rega, for you then, what's your experience been? Obviously, you've been here a bit longer as you're in the second year of the grad program. So what's your experience been like so far on that program, and then again of the culture?
Yeah, so the program for me has been absolutely amazing so far. So I've done a few placements, like I've talked about it, in various different departments. My manager is the most supportive manager I've ever had. He's really amazing, and he's really focused on my development, which is just such an amazing feeling, honestly. Yeah, with the grad scheme, you really get to see the entirety of the company if you want to. I've also done my 1 week manufacturing placement as well recently. So I got to see the manufacturing process as well, which was very interesting to see. And you don't realize how much goes into that until you actually go and see it. The culture here, again, everyone's really, really friendly. And there's a whole community of us grads, and we have our socials, like Sam has mentioned. So it really does feel like sort of a almost continuation of uni, if you think about it that way. But there's lots of ex-grads, apprentices, a lot of young people within JLR. So that's really amazing. And you really do get to work with a lot of people from all around the world. So in my home team within the software integration role, I get to work with our team in India. I also got to work with our team in Budapest. So it's very interesting to work with people from all around the world.
Yeah.
And it really just shows how inclusive we really are.
Yeah, and shows how much of a global brand we are as well. So I think that's amazing. Exactly. And I'm glad you felt that continuation of uni. Maybe without the Wednesday night out, perhaps. Is for both of you, I think there's been some questions in terms of training and learning opportunities in the chat already. So is there any particular training that you would highlight in your time so far?
I think Ashore on Hill, so that's the soft skill training, has been particularly useful for me because I wasn't really that confident with sort of my speaking skills and people skills. And it's really great that JLR really puts that money and effort into us to develop us as people rather than just look at us as a source of labor. But yeah, it genuinely has helped me so much with my confidence and my people skills and just my everyday work life, really.
That's brilliant. And well, I know you've only been here for 7-ish weeks, so you probably haven't done loads, but I guess as you've started your career here, and there might have been particular systems that you've been trained to use or programs, whatever it might be. So have you had any experiences of kind of training and development in your early stages of the grad program?
Yeah, so when it comes to work training, I have been like within the first 2 weeks, I was given all the training, everyone helped me out. And when it comes to Ashon Hill, I actually completed my first journey today.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about communication skills. So I did learn a lot about, I mean, we all think we know how to communicate and listen to people, but we never they did go into in depth and be like, this is actually communicating, this is actually listening. And I really understood, even though I think I do listen well and I'm a good listener, there are like parts of it I have to work on. So yeah, that's what I have experienced right now.
And I guess learning different communication styles, things like that. You know, everyone's different. We can all write an email or speak to someone in a meeting, but it's sometimes the way you come across in different styles to suit different people, I think is what helps you excel in your career.
Yeah.
So it sounds like some good training so far. I've got 2 more questions for you each. First one is, what's been your most exciting moment so far at JLR?
So like I said last Friday, so I got to go to Whitley alone, and we knew the new Range Rover coming out, the whole vehicle itself. So I just got to see an unreleased car just sitting there, and I was just for 5 minutes. I was just like, because I was sent alone as well. Like nobody came with me. Like nobody was like, "Oh, it is your first time doing it all alone." Like I have never weighed a car or never watched a person do that. So they just gave me the instructions. They were like, "There'll be technicians to help you, but you got this. This is your responsibility." And I'm like, "You have to do it properly because the whole company depends on that data." And I'm like, "Oh," but yeah, it was pretty interesting. I was just looking at the car for like a good 5 minutes without doing my job, and like, you know, just so exciting. Like it was a responsibility. Like I felt like really important as an important person at that moment, which I think is really not something you would feel if you're new to a place, right? So I felt important and I felt a responsibility, and I was gawking at the car for like good 5 minutes, and like it looks so good. Yeah, so that was really interesting, a really interesting moment to have been in just within 7 weeks in JLR. So
yeah, I think there's so many places that you can apply to and join and do grad schemes and all that kind of stuff. But I always think there's a sense of excitement when what you're doing and what that end product is something special. And I know, seeing our vehicles definitely gives you those feelings and those moments. And it really creates this excitement, like you said, when with vehicle launches, stuff like that. And when I'm sure with both of you, you've probably worked on vehicles in your time, maybe multiple brand ranges or vehicle ranges that are not released yet. And I think that it's really exciting then when you get to see stuff that's future based and out there, but you've had a part in it. Is that an experience that you've had, Reiki, yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say something very similar. I get to drive a lot of our cars as well, which is definitely very, very exciting, and not just the Range Rovers, because that's what my squad mainly works on. But I've driven Jags, all of them pretty much. So I think that's very exciting. We also get to do a lot of benchmarking. So we get to drive and test our competitor vehicles. So we've had the Porsche Taycan, we've had the BMW i7. We've also had Tesla, pretty much every luxury vehicle you can imagine. We've had it here, and I've been sat in them and tried them out. So that to me is very exciting because I love cars.
Not bad. Yeah, not bad. And just finally, what is one top tip you would give to any of the students that are listening today?
So I would say work on your interview and CV, because essentially JLR does not require CV, but when you do put work into CV, you would be like listing out your skills and all your experience. So even though you do not submit a CV essentially to JLR, like you would have to think through the process, which you could use that information when you are answering questions facing the interview. And when it comes to interviewing skills, work on your language, work on the words you use, work on your posture, work on your how you interact with the interviewer. So all of those skills you have to work. You might be like, oh, I know how to talk, I know how to present, that's enough. It's not, because if you come off as standoffish and you don't interact with the person, they're not going to feel like you're a good fit in JLR, because in JLR, people it's people being very nice to each other and very interactive is an important part, I believe. So you're not going to get it through it if you have the brains, but you don't have the people skills, or they will help you work on the people skills, but if you don't make it through the interviewing process, I don't think it's going to work out. So work on your interviewing skills and your CV. So yeah.
Brilliant. And Reka, top tip from you?
Be confident, be yourself. You will 100% get imposter syndrome, because I did, and it can really feel like it will stop you in your tracks, but just power through it. Yeah, just be confident. I think that's my biggest tip.
Brilliant. No, thank you both. Really appreciate your insights into your experience so far, and hopefully there's a few things there that will help and inspire the students on the call as well, who are no doubt thinking about applications at the moment and in that window of applying to various different companies. So appreciate you both for coming onto the webinar today. We're going to move on and talk a little bit about the application process, but keep the questions coming in, and we should have a good 10 minutes at the end so we can answer some of those. If you've got questions for me, myself, or questions for Manoj or Reka that you've heard from, feel free to ask away. So just to talk to you a bit about application process, 3 stages to go through, essentially, starting with an online application, progressing to online testing, then to a virtual assessment centre, and then you'll get your offer. So in the application process, as was mentioned, you don't actually need a CV or a cover letter to apply to us, which saves you some time, I think, and hopefully that helps. So the main part of the application process is an online application form, and there's a question in there in particular that we're going to assess you on. And that question is going to ask, essentially, what's your motivation? Why do you want to apply to JLR? So within that question, it's really important to start thinking about why the role, first of all. So what is it about the particular role that you're going for that interests you? And then why at JLR? So if you're going for a role as an electrical engineer, then there's probably 50 plus companies that you could go for a similar role for. So what is it about doing that role at JLR compared to somewhere else that really makes it stand out for you? And then also, what skills and experiences can you demonstrate that would show that you would add value to that role, would show why you've got the passion for the role? So it might be in the degree you're studying, being in a relevant field, and it might be, again, thinking as an electrical engineer and thinking of JLR strategy and how we're moving to electrification. That might really excite you, and that might be a journey that you want to be involved in. So it's things like that that you can bring out to really talk about why you're motivated, that's going to help you stand out in that application process. You'll then move to online testing. So there's 3 different types of tests that you'll get involved in. The first one is the sort of normal aptitude assessment. So that's your general cognitive numerical type testing, the stuff like, here's a sequence of numbers, tell me what the next number is. It's that type of thing. There's then a match 6.5 personality assessment. So essentially that's based on our values against your values and kind of how you align to those. And then the final part is a situational judgment test. So again, putting you in the shoes of somebody in that role, what would you do in these scenarios? And sometimes there's not necessarily a right or wrong, but if you start to think about our values, what would we expect in that situation, that can help you with some of those situations as such. There is an online practice area on our website. I'll talk more about where you can find it in a second. So you can start to practice for those tests. And again, the more roles that you apply for, because we're not naive, you're not going to just apply to JLR. So the more roles that you apply for, the more experience you tend to get in these stages as well. The final part is an assessment centre, which is again online. There's two parts to this assessment centre. So as well, Malaj mentioned earlier, there's a presentation which will be on a general business topic. You'll get that 2 weeks in advance as well, so you've got plenty of time to prepare. Essentially, we're looking for about 3 or 4 slides, 10-ish minutes of presenting and 20 minutes Q&A. And it's going to be a bit research-based. We're expecting that you've done some research into JLR. You've maybe brought some stats out. You've talked a bit about how you can contribute to the success of the business as well. So that's the presentation aspect. There is then, apologies, that's meant to say the interview, but there's then the interview. So with that, it will be based around our creators code, which I'll show you in a second. That's JLR's values. So one of those values, for example, is unity. We might say, unity is one of our core parts of our creators code. This is about how we work as one. Tell me about a time where you've worked in a team to deliver on a project. Something like that. So it's those kind of behavioural type questions, looking to talk about your skills and experiences. As I mentioned, could be from uni, could be from college, work, volunteering, sports team involvement, society involvement, wherever those experiences come from. That's what we're looking for. And it's a real opportunity to sell yourself at this part. So, and as Reka mentioned, I think this is probably the part where most people will experience that imposter syndrome feeling. But this is the real part where you've got the chance to sell yourself and why you deserve to be one of the people that gets the role. And also it's a two-way process as well. So, we're going to ask you questions, but by all means, ask the interviewer questions as well. And it will help you hopefully identify whether the actual role and whether the company suits you at this point. These are the creators codes that I mentioned. So there's 5 values in total, which means you tend to get 5 interview questions, 1 for each value. Not that you want to just guess the questions and just prepare for those, but I think when you read these values, it helps you start to think about the stuff we might ask. I mentioned an example around unity. You can start to think of what some of those examples might be, and accordingly, hopefully start to think about your skills and experiences and what you would say in response, and hopefully prepare yourself so when you do get a question, there might be a trigger word that the interviewer says and it makes you think of, this is the example I've got from X, Y, or Z. So definitely use those creators code and have a look at them before you apply. Final thing to say is, so all of the stuff I just talked about in terms of the application process is all available on our new employability hub. So we recognised as part of leading this campaign this year that we didn't give you enough support. We sort of told you what our application process was, but didn't actually go into the detail of how to help you out with it. So we've just created this employability hub, myself and a colleague. It only launched a month ago, so it's all brand new. It's got full information about the application process, what to do at each stage, how to best prepare. There's some top tips videos. You'll see some familiar faces across videos. There's things like stuff around STAR methodology. So, you might have learned that at school, college, university, but it's still really important today. And when I got this job a couple of years back, I used that methodology to frame my answers. So there's content around that as well. So lots of stuff on there. And I've said to people, regardless of if you apply to JLR or you do end up applying somewhere else, I think there's a lot of things on there that will apply across all of them and should be really useful. So definitely check it out. Lots of new resources on there. And also to be able to get more insight into JLR, you can follow our social media channels. So there's a sample of some of them here. I think our LinkedIn in particular is a great way to get insights into the company culture and what we're doing, whether it's strategically, whether it is culturally or something else. There's a lot on there. And our Instagram is really good for getting unique stories of our people. So rather than general company insight, actual insights into a particular pocket or area of the business. So do be sure to follow some of those social media channels to stay up to date. There's a couple of poll questions I'm going to ask now, and then we'll go into a Q&A. So I want to ask the confidence question again. and just see if anything has changed. Hopefully it has just a little bit. So how confident do you feel applying for graduate roles after hearing some of those tips and information? So the poll should be live in the poll section of your screen. You can just go into there and vote. Okay, so seeing some more confident responses come through, which is good. So I'm seeing some somewhat confidence on there as well, which is good. Hopefully some of those not confidence have improved slightly into somewhat confident. And again, if you need any help, by all means, you can reach out to myself on LinkedIn, email our graduate Jaguar Land Rover inbox. You've got the Employability Hub as well, so hopefully that will help you out too. And the final question of the polls is going to go live now. So this is going to ask you how likely you are to apply to a graduate opportunity at JLR. So I'll give you 15 seconds or so to answer that poll, and then we'll move into a Q&A. So just wait for a couple of answers to come through. Seeing a very likely, that's music to my ears. And a few likelies coming through as well, which is really good. So hopefully you've enjoyed some of the stuff you've heard and got some insights into the types of areas you could work in. We've got a good 10 minutes Q&A now, so happy to hand over to our host and talk through some of the questions that have come through and see what we can answer.
Yeah, very good. As you can see, everyone is likely or very likely to apply for a graduate opportunity. I'm quite likely now that I've learned all that, to be honest. So we'll crack into the questions. We have quite a few to get through in 10 minutes, so I'll just crack it in. Leroy says, how long does the application process take in terms of when we might be offered the job?
Okay. It can depend on when you apply sometimes. So typically our assessment or the virtual assessment centre part of the application process, they kick off around about the end of November. So if you've applied early doors, mid-September when we opened, then you might have a slightly longer window, but then it also gives you the chance to have gone through testing first and be potentially fast-tracked into those assessments. I think overall it's about 2 months. It can be 3 months. Again, depending on when you've applied and depending on when you get to the virtual assessment centre. But I would definitely encourage you, get your applications in early, get yourself through online testing, and then wait to hear about the virtual assessment centre, because that will be the last stage.
Decent. Lovely stuff. Here's a good question here by Carl. He says, what sets JLR apart from other automotive companies in terms of its approach to sustainability and innovation? Wow.
That's a good question. I'm happy for our volunteers to chip in with this one as well. I think for me, the part of my answer would probably be collective spirit. So there's a lot going on in the organisation, a lot of positive things, a lot shared as well. So it's not super private in terms of what we're trying to do. When we have new partnerships, for example, that will be talked about. Our board will talk about their kind of aims for us as a business. That will transcend down then into the different teams, and we'll have sort of quarterly scorecards. There'll be agile sprints that might be 2-week-long projects, 4-week-long projects, etc. So I think there's aims at the top, and you see it trickle down. It's hard to say, per team what those different ambitions and aims are going to be around sustainability and innovation, but there's a lot going on in all sorts of different teams. I think from an innovation perspective, I've seen the business do hackathons. On the grad scheme, we have the Graduate Innovation Challenge, which tends to lead to a lot of exciting projects. I was speaking to a grad just the other day at one of our careers fairs, and he was talking about a project that he's doing, which is all about kind of how the customer, when they get to the vehicle, how we create those wow moments. So he was talking about the different lighting and moods in the cabin and smells and things that could be activated depending on who the driver was, which I thought was really exciting. There's TIC as well, which is our team improvement circle. So anybody can get involved in that. It tends to come around each year. Again, loads of innovations happen. I know that there's been projects that have gone through that process, which is global, by the way. So all global employees get involved in it. And there's projects that have gone through that have saved the business hundreds of thousands of pounds in efficiencies on certain processes around our vehicles, or have created new innovations in the technology and things that we do. So that's the insight I've got just from hearing off other people. Feel free to chip in. Melodra, Ray.
We'll keep on going on because we've got questions to go through here. I've got one for the graduates. Jess says, would you say you've been given real responsibility as a graduate?
Yeah, so in my case, I think I mentioned this. So I have been here only for like 7-ish weeks, but I've already been given the responsibility of going out to another. Essentially, I work in Gaydon, but I was supposed to go to Whitley alone and a vehicle. So it was a pretty mind-blowing responsibility because I have never seen somebody do it. But they guided me through it, and there were technicians to help me. But essentially, it was a responsibility. I was supposed to go and do it alone, and there are like different programs or different documents that I am responsible for, and I do, in a sense, real work. If that's what you're asking, yeah, I do. In the first 2 weeks, it was a bit slow because it was more focused on getting you settled in. But now I do real work. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I would agree on that as well. From day one, I was given meaningful work. So within software integration, I've dealt with a lot of supplier management. So that's just feeding back the bugs and issues we find with the software. And also, I was responsible for testing requirements for a new software, for a new feature that we're working on. So that's over 1,000 requirements that I had to test. And I was solely responsible for that. In research as well, I was tasked with sort of defining a new feature and then passing it back to our core department. So you definitely do get real work when you come in.
Nice. Actually, on that one, Carlos says, have you gained many skills since starting as a graduate at JLR? And are you able to carry on at JLR after the scheme ends? If so, will it be in the same role or do you have to reapply? Thank you.
Yeah, so me and my manager have come up with a sort of development plan for me. So the plan for me is to become
I think you've cut out there just on the plan.
An end-to-end system engineer. So that's from a new feature to actually developing and seeing. Oh, sorry.
The connection's gone just a tiny bit. You're still there. You're still there.
My plan, I'm an end-to-end system engineer. So okay, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So it's seeing how an idea develops into an actual feature and seeing it end-to-end, basically. What was the question again? Sorry.
It was, are you able to carry on at JLR after the scheme ends and it's going to be the same role?
Yes. So, the team you start off in is your so-called home team. And that's where you end up going back to at the end of the scheme. But if you do not like that role, I think you can apply for other roles, but you will have to go through an application process, I believe. Feel free to correct me, Sam, if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I think it depends on the role and your experiences. If you've done a placement with somewhere else and your home department's happy for you to move there, then often you can. Sometimes you might need to apply for a role. But when the grad scheme starts from day one, you're a permanent employee, so it isn't a 2-year scheme and we get rid of you. It's 2 years, and then that's sets up the future of your career.
Great. If you're unsuccessful, do JLR give feedback and can you apply again next year?
Yes, so there is feedback. It can be quite basic if you're unsuccessful at the initial screen or test phase, but when you've done your interview, you will get, like your assessment centre, you will get more in-depth feedback. You can only apply to one role each year, so make sure you have a look at the ones available and pick the one that feels right to you. But you can apply each cycle as such. If you're unsuccessful this year, you can apply again next year and so on.
Nice. On that, Nicole says, when do the applications close?
So most of the ones that are remaining will close on the 27th of November. There's a couple in the corporate space, like marketing, for example, which is called commercial. I believe will close slightly earlier at the end of October. So you probably want to get your applications in pretty soon. But obviously they can close earlier. So some have closed already. It gets busy. So get your applications in sooner rather than later.
There you go. Get that in your diary. 27th. Is there any website or link you can put in the chat?
Yeah.
Or because obviously there's a lot of questions to go through, just in case someone would like to ask you a question. Of course, this will be up on the YouTube and our website as well, so you can watch it back. If you have any questions, I'm sure Sam will put something in the group chat that he can contact. There you go. There's the early careers link. I saw you kind of touched on it earlier as we're finishing up, but just to get your each perspectives, what advice do you have for any one of these 500 odd people who are watching us here? If they want to join JLR, what advice do you have for them?
Mine would be to be confident and really think about why you want to apply. So I think I saw a question about what stood out in recent applications or CVs, and it's the people that are genuinely motivated. Some people will say, oh, the cars are really nice, or I used to play with Lego cars when I was younger or something and really enjoyed it. And it's not the stuff that excites the recruiter or makes it stand out. So it's really where you've demonstrated your passion for the role and why you want to apply to JLR, and start to touch on your involvements and how it might relate. You haven't got to love cars to be able to apply to us, by all means. If you talked about maybe Formula E or certain projects you've been involved in and what skills and experiences that's helped you develop and why that would make you suitable for the role, it's what's going to help you stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like Sam has said, any experience is good experience. So don't worry if you don't have a lot of engineering experience. Just put down the project that you've done at uni. That's what I've done, and I'm here, and it works.
Perfect.
I would say invest time on improving your skills, as interviewing skills and your CV skills and everything. Just invest time on that. It does pay off.
Amazing. Perfect answer for the three of you. It is on 401. We're over. Well, thank you very much, everyone. It has been very insightful. I hope everyone has taken on all the information and has jotted down the 27th of November in their diary. Make sure they apply before then. So thank you very much from the JLR team. And thank you to everyone for joining. And on our first complete day of National Graduate Week, hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. So have a nice evening, everyone. And cheerio.
Have a nice evening. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys.
See you later.